This idea that we have to be African or Native American is ridiculous. We are both African and Native to America. Um, More so than I mean, and then we have to admit the fact that Angolians were brought here, and Angolians, yeah, Angolians were brought here, and Nigerians were brought here, and you can't uh, um, not include the 1717 Negro Indian Act, in which more Negro appearing Indians were separated from their lighter counterparts. But that's like saying, like, white people could say they're Native American in relationship to the fact that there is evidence to show that Europeans left Europe, France, went across the ice age, got here about fucking, you know what I'm saying, somewhere like maybe 7,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago. Africans were here. Other Asians crossed the Bering Straits. So the Americans have been a fucking melting pot for the last fucking 10,000 some odd years, 15,000 years. But there has been influxions of new African DNA over a period of time. If you use and 300,000 years ago, I mean, Africans, if you use David Imhotep's scholarship and Ivan Van Sertima's scholarship, you can place us here anywhere between 10,000 and 100,000 years ago. And the original African migration, Africans migrated to North America. There's enough evidence to support that. But there's also evidence that there was a slave trade. There's evidence of an inflection of African DNA, not just during the slave trade, but prior to the Middle Passage, which is the Middle Passage, which is how Africans from Western Africa or Southwestern Africa got to this side of the fucking of the world. So we don't have to be one or the other. By very definition, we are African Americans. We can borrow from our African tradition while borrowing from our Native American traditions, while borrowing from our African American established traditions and creating a whole new traditions. Amalgamating these traditions. And the thing about it is, there's not enough investigation done to say one versus the other, and there's still not enough investigation to exclude one or the other. So our origin story should be compiled of both narratives. You know what I'm saying? And not seeing them as a singular narrative, seeing them as a amalgamated or a singular narrative in itself, that this is the cause and effect outside of slavery that resulted in the so-called African American, or the Negro of the North American wilderness, or the so-called African American of the North American wilderness, however you want to put that. It's like we want to be petty, and that pettiness that's not cooperative, and that lack of cooperation shows a lack of group intelligence and individual intelligence in relationship to the group. That we need to cooperate in order to get to where we need to be as a people. And that's independent. You know what I'm saying? We don't need to no longer be codependent upon our oppressor. And that's what appeasement is. Appeasement is just the continuation and an extension of codependency. Oh, white man, give us justice. Oh, white man, make laws that are. White man, when we elect you, or when we elect you elect you the Negropean through the European fucking dominated political party. Please help us, and dude, that's not gonna work, bro. Please let us sit at your counter. And if you don't let us sit at your counter and serve us, then we'll sit at your counter until we're pulled away by your police And that's the funny thing about it is the Anti-Defamation League did not take that stance at all. There was not one sitting associated with the Anti-Defamation League. Still hasn't been, except for in conjunction with the SCLC or the NAACP in order to further our goals of integration. What the fuck were they trying to integrate? They established autonomy. But see, the thing about it is they needed those black dollars in order to maintain our liquid money, in order to maintain their own autonomy. And we stupid enough to not investigate the interest, and we weren't because it's so compartmentalized. The NAACP, most people didn't even know who the NAACP started. And the leadership wasn't telling nobody, and the leadership still doesn't motherfucking tell nobody. Your originating agenda, your originating motivations is your continued motivations, why the NAACP or the Southern fucking Christian fucking Leadership Council ain't done shit. SNCC ain't done, SNCC, you know what I'm saying, has done more, Black Panthers has done more. And that's the truth. Black Panthers have done more for black people than any of these Negropean organizations ever have done. And we're talking about government programs that are still contribute more to the black community than any of the programs established by the mainstream civil rights organizations. And see, that's mainstream. Our organizations are mainstreamed. What the fuck does that mean? Well, they got to adhere to the mainstream. The mainstream is the ethnic agenda of white supremacy. So our fucking goddamn mainstream civil rights organizations are only working for the status quo in order to make, and if you look at how, and I think about that all the time, it's like, there's no way in the world these intelligent people could not have seen what was for, even Martin Luther King was like, dude, oh my God, now I see this shit. I feel like I've integrated my people into a burning building. Because in order for us to integrate, the building doesn't need to be burning anymore. And I'm not excluding the possibility of integration at some point in time in which white supremacy is not the basis of this systematic structure. Because all it's going to do, if we integrate into that systematic structure, is going to encourage us to oppress ourselves. We're going to engage in white supremacy. And that's what we've done for the last 60 some odd years, engaged in white supremacy. More so than we did prior to that 60 years, because we've been integrated into the white supremacist structure. Systematic structure. So we're systematically oppressing ourselves now. They don't need to do this shit. It's on autopilot. We've been doing more to ourselves since the 70s than anybody else has done to us. But again, you can't take the oppressor out of the equation, because the oppressor's system is still the primary reason why we're oppressing ourselves. If we would separate ourselves from this system, we would no longer be systematically oppressing ourselves. It's because we're engaged in this system that we're still systematically oppressing ourselves, so we can point back to ourselves as being the reason for our oppression, absent of the oppressor. We exclude the oppressor from our oppression, and see, and that's when you get this talented 10, this right-wing, Negropean coon-ass niggas, where they can exclude the oppressor from the oppressor, because it's entirely systematic now. White people don't have to actively fucking engage in our oppression anymore. The system is automatic. It's autonomous in its oppression. The oppressed are using the very same system they've been integrated into to oppress themselves. So now it's a lot more covert. It's not as overt as when they were motherfucking coming through and burning our shit down. When they were actually, engaging in overt, experimentation upon us. You know what I'm saying? When they were setting overt, laws and restrictions upon our movement and our access to resources. They don't need to do that shit no more. We'll do it for them. They just have to establish a Title 10 to motherfucking goddamn regulate it. But you still can't exclude the fucking oppressor from the equation. They developed the system and they're still benefiting from the system. It's not like they're not benefiting from this system in which we're engaging in. This autonomous system or automatic system of oppression, they're still benefiting from it. They still get this false sense of privilege from it. They're still given cultural, economic, educational, fucking employment advantages that we're not given. But we're more actively in making sure that we don't take advantage of them than they are. And the more that we go, the longer we go on, the more automated it's going to become. To the point that they're not, I mean, they're going to still benefit. They're going to still be pulling the shit off the motherfucking goddamn, you know what I'm saying? Off, what's that shit called? The conveyor belt, the automated fucking assembly line. They're going to still be pulling the finished product off the assembly line. White privilege. We gonna be the factory workers, and we assembling this shit. And at the end of the motherfucker, when it's all assembled and shit, they go pick it up. White privilege. Thank you for my white privilege. Thank you for my white privilege. Be homeless with white folks, and see how white privilege works. I've been homeless or on the street with white folks. I know how they privilege works in relationship to whatever position that they might be in. They can still say, at least I'm white, 21, and free. They can still say that. That's white privilege. That's white privilege in a motherfucking nutshell. That it is freedom regardless of what your position is, of even having to deal with race and getting preferential treatment based upon your race, regardless of what condition you're in. I grew up as a middle class fucking person in America. My middle class status is equivalent to a motherfucking white boy, to a working class or fucking goddamn trailer park trash as far as white people are concerned. That's what it's equivalent to. Eminem. Me and Eminem are socially equivalent when in actuality we shouldn't be socially equivalent. Me and Marshall shouldn't be socially equivalent, but we are socially equivalent. And I'm not talking about Eminem as, you know what I'm saying, the rapper, or, you know what I'm saying, the successful rapper. I'm saying Eminem in the model of Marshall Mathers. And it's why that Macklemore, why Marshall Mathers, and I'm not saying they're not a talent, are doing better in a genre of music in which we created than we are. One, because we're self-oppressing. We're to the point where we oppress ourselves so excellently or so well that shit. Most of the cops is gonna be black in our neighborhood in a minute. I'm done.